This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXDX, the best talk in town. I think it should be a lively discussion today. I have in front of me somebody that wants to change California, that I believe has a plan, that has the charisma and has now the connections to do it. I have governor candidate Leo Zacky joining me. Welcome.
Thanks, Eric. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Leo, everybody kind of shakes their head and goes, well, why would you jump into politics? So what's the answer for you?
Well, for me, I just got tired of everybody lying to my face about what they're going to do and how they're going to change everything. And growing up around my family's business, for those of you who don't know, obviously I'm Leo Zacky, Zacky Farms. And I got to grow up in the agriculture industry. And when I was 15, my grandmother used to take me to the California Poultry Federation events, and we'd go to the state capitol and we'd go to the nation's capital in DC and meet with the USDA and the FDA and the EPA and the congressmen and the senators and talk to them about issues that were facing us in California and ask for their help. And I quickly learned that these folks are not the best and brightest, and they don't care about you or your family or your business, but they really love being wine and dined. And a lot of them really don't understand the basic, fundamentals of agriculture or just any industry for that matter. And so when I was 18, I formally became a board member of the Poultry Federation, and I was a board member for 10 years. And during that time, I wound up starting to work for my family officially after I left college in 2012. And then I worked my way up to becoming vice president. So I had a very hands-on experience in and around the poultry industry. So I got to see all the issues that we faced in California from a business perspective, and then also the incompetence from a legislative and bureaucratic perspective as well.
Well, that's actually kind of perfect. Business, somebody I believe needs to have experienced the business world so that they understand that side of it before they should go into government. I kind of see that as one of the essential things to do. So with your experience in ag, what were the problems? What did you run into trying to run a big company? Because I realize California largely ran you out of town.
Yeah, pretty much. Between the high, minimum wage prices, when minimum wage went up to $15 an hour, that really, really crippled us. But, you just have all this red tape and high utility costs when it comes to water. And then, the restrictions and regulations on how you have to store that wastewater before you can dump it. And then the electricity costs. And then even things when we wanted to expand our poultry operation, we had to buy the land first, then go through the whole, rigmarole of getting the approvals and everything signed off. And that takes time and money. And then you get all the way to the end of the process. And then if somebody lives a couple miles down the road says, oh, I don't want the smell, I don't want the dust from the chickens, well, that's it. You can't continue. You can't build there. And the building permits were just a nightmare. It was just, you had to invest all this capital, pay the taxes on the property, sit on the property until you get it approved. And then eventually something like that could just deny your whole effort into making that a reality. And it was just very frustrating.
So it's like they forced you to buy the land before you could even take the next step.
Right.
Which seems backwards to me. You'd think that if you were going to provide jobs in a needed industry, because we all got to eat, that government would be trying to help you.
Especially in areas that could use the jobs. We were doing this all up and down the Central Valley, around Hanford, Corcoran, Firebaugh, Kerman. You name it. We had a hatchery in Kerman. Our processing facility was in Fresno. Our cook facility was in Stockton. So, we were providing at one point 4,000 jobs in California.
Wow. And yet they just let it go, which seems to be, it's like people aren't the priority in California. I don't know quite what is, but people aren't the priority, but animal, like endangered species and
shrubs and fish.
Shrubs and fish. Yeah, that's a good way to put that.
Well, that's especially in light of the fires that we've been experiencing here in Los Angeles. I mean, it's an insult. And, for ag, water is so important, especially in the poultry industry. Folks might not think that, you need to water your chickens. Well, they do need water because they're a living animal, but more importantly, when you go through the processing component, there's a lot of water. You have to clean out the cavity of the bird and make sure there's no fecal matter. And it's all about sanitation and bringing down the temperature of the bird in a healthy and clean manner. So it is very water intensive. And
I've toured the Foster Farms plant in Livingston.
yeah, well, and and the sanitation process that's involved too. I mean, at the end of every day, like, you have to really thoroughly clean every single piece of equipment, the floors, the walls, the ceilings, even in the hatchery. I mean, I had to do all these jobs, so I can tell you there's a lot of water that goes into it.
Um, I worked for Butterball Conagra for a little while in a turkey hatchery. So did every job that was there, including the lab, except management. They offered me management and I quit.
Hey, it was
Went to
fun
work for
job.
myself.
I had fun doing that. I really enjoyed all that stuff.
Well, it taught me how to work. That part was good. And I decided that I just didn't want to do it and went a completely different direction. But hey, I respect the people that work in ag because you have to love it. It's a hard job.
Oh, yeah.
So what would you do about water? Because water, as governor, how could you shift what's going on? We've had stuff that's been approved for years, yet no ground has been broken on new dams or reservoirs. We got
Right.
a problem with moving water. We've got this ridiculous little fish that isn't even native to this area.
Yeah,
They
well,
imported the Delta smelt. What do you do?
well, right now, from what I understand, UC Davis has the Delta smelt in captivity, and they're breeding it and then releasing it in the San Francisco estuary area. And
Feeding the stripers that aren't native?
yeah, right. It's it's completely, just backwards, doesn't make any sense. But, the saying in the valley is dams, not trains. Those are the signs I'd see driving up the 99 all the time, and I couldn't agree more. We need to build more dams. I mean, look what they're doing in the Klamath River right now, tearing down dams, hydroelectric dams. So we're losing water storage, we're losing energy creation for 300 indigenous people for a salmon population to come back. They're bending over backwards to protect the environment somehow.
And Newsom's praising that.
Yeah, well, they wanna champion this stuff. This is that green, environmentalist, just it's a cult. So we need to build reservoirs throughout the state to collect the rainwater because it's going to rain, and when it does, we need to be able to collect it. Same thing with up at the high altitudes to capture the snowpack, dam up a lot of the canyons there in the Sierra Nevadas so we can harness it and then turn it into not just for water, but for hydroelectric generation as well. And then you have the bypass for all that runoff there in Merced, if I'm not mistaken, and that all runs out to the sea, and they're taxing farmers to actually gain access to it, which is ridiculous. We need to have our desalinization plants that are built, turned on, and the ones that are approved to be built. And then we need to supplement that with power that's consistent. So small modular nuclear reactors, I think, is the safest and most efficient way to go about that. But even here in Los Angeles, in our major metropolitan areas, we do have rivers. We got the Rio Hondo, the LA River, Santa Ana River, and those are all concreted up. So we can just dam them up at the end with a spillway when it rains. Because believe it or not, they actually fill up, and they're quite long and they're quite wide and they're rather deep. And if you put purification plants along that, you can pump that back in the municipal system as well to help take the pressure off the inland reserves. And my long-term goal for this is that we're going to have such an abundance of water here in California that we can then turn around and auction off our allocated allowance from the Colorado River Shed. So we get the lion's share here in California. So we could do it on an annual, biannual, quarterly, monthly basis, however we see fit to the people that we share it with. So that could be Nevada, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, even Mexico. And by the time the Colorado River reaches down into Mexico, it's a trickle of what it is here in the United States.
So basically, you would turn water into money.
Yeah, and it doesn't cost us anything except for the initial build out with the infrastructure. And part of the way I want to help build that infrastructure is tied to my homeless solution as well. Just getting people off the streets and getting them into work. I mean, it's really not that hard to dig a big hole and line it with concrete. Sure, we can bring in some experts that are a little more skilled in the plumbing department, but, digging a hole with 100,000 people and a shovel gets done pretty dang quick.
Well, the Coastal Commission's not going to like you.
I don't like them either. But this is about taking care of the people of California. We have to put the people first, not the shrubs, not the fish, because if you continue to do that, we're going to see more wildfires like we're experiencing, and we're going to see more people moving out and businesses with that. And there goes the tax base. And the only way they know how to bring money into the state is through taxation. We have to have multiple revenue streams. I mean, that's something I learned in business. Like we had to find a way to make everything that we had turn into money. So whether it was the litter in our chicken coops, we'd sell that for fertilizer. The off haul stuff we'd take to rendering facilities, so they could make it into glue or something like that. Um, I mean, every little bit of the bird had to go to something.
That's something that government lacks. It's like money just grows on trees. And, we, since, oh, who was it? Nixon, both on the federal level and California's adopted this, they go with baseline budgeting, meaning instead of starting with, well, we got to figure out what this particular department needs every year. It was, let's take, oh, it's $1 million last year. So we're going to start at $1 million rather than determine whether it's needed.
Well, we need a purchasing department. In purchasing, your job is to go and requisition the things that we need at the best possible price. Meeting our standards, of course. It has to meet the quality, but at the best possible price. Right now, they're just given the amount of money that they had last year. It's basically spend it all or you don't get as much next year, whether it's a good result or not. Well, I mean, I'd like to do what Trump did. I mean, any new regulation that wants to be put on the books, you got to take two off. I thought that was a brilliant concept. Why not? It worked. I mean, let the industry tell you what they need and then try to find some sort of a balance. I mean, obviously the industries would love to have, a blank slate. I mean, there needs to be some level of responsibility. Don't get me wrong. But you wanna talk to the lobbying organizations. You wanna talk to the heads of the industry, see what they need to have a better overall margin for their industry that's gonna be fair and balanced. Because if you're making it impossible for folks to, build out new, like, for example, for me, like chicken or turkey houses, the ability for the businesses to grow stagnates. And a business needs to grow at a minimum of 2% a year just to stay at like a sustainable rate. Because if you don't grow by 2% annually, you're actually losing. So your business is shrinking. So I really think that you have to listen to the industry leaders, what they need. I think a lot of this environmental stuff really needs to go away. I mean, I'm not worried about cow farts or too much about um, soil degradation. I mean, don't get me wrong, we have to manage the environment, but just having all these things like, I mean, they're talking about here with the wildfires is something that really bugs me. It's like, oh, well, we have to remediate the soil to build a house on it. It's like you're going to put a slab of concrete over this stuff. Nothing's growing there.
Well, that's just very typical. So let's go ahead and shift to fires, because this isn't a problem that's not going away. Our legislature, in their infinite wisdom, just decided that no, we did not need to pass a bill that would have provided $1 billion towards managing our forests.
Yeah, that was pretty insulting. They really wanted to focus on Trump proofing the state, though. That was the precedence, taking our tax dollars to pay legal fees to combat the president of the United States, the guy who's trying to help us, by the way, who also won the popular vote.
And did better in California than ever before. So I think that California could be shifted red, but there's a lot of work we need to do. But if we could even get to a place where there's common sense and we got in a governor candidate, California could shift dramatically during that period of time. if that governor has the strength and vision. I don't believe we got that with Brian Dolly.
No, I didn't see that at all. The sad truth is there's a lot of great grassroots people out there, and they just don't get the support that they need. And they don't. It's really hard to break into this, especially when you don't have any money behind you. Um, but you got great ideas. It's just really hard to break out into this. There's a lot of establishment barriers at every step of the way. But I mean, when it comes to fires, we need to have forest management. It's really simple. We need to bring a logging industry in. We have an invasive bark beetle that's decimating our forests. We're not doing the underbrush clearing. Clearly, we don't have enough water. Our infrastructure is outdated, crumbling, and we haven't built any significant water reservoirs in the last 50 years. So we need to make an investment into water, into managing our forests, and allowing a logging industry to come in. I'm not talking about clear cutting. I'm talking about proper gleaning of forests. You take every eighth tree, get rid of the dead ones that are infected with the bark beetle, and eradicate that sucker because it's decimating our forests and it's making the kindling so prime for the fires. I mean, the Native Americans that inhabited the land before we got here, they knew about underbrush clearing. They did their own prescriptive burns, and they were able to avoid devastating wildfires that would wipe out everything because not only would they lose their homes, but they would lose their food sources if they were out of control. So learning how to balance nature and live in harmony with it, yeah, it involves fire, but in a controlled form.
Well, it's crazy in the Central Valley. I don't know about LA forest very much, but in the Central Valley, all the forests that kind of border the Central Valley, the areas that don't have controlled burns, they're currently sitting at 10 times as many trees as they had in 50 that they did 50 years ago. There's 10 times as many trees per acre. Well, that means you're going to have smaller trees. That means that there's less resources for those trees, and small trees burn worse because we're not managing it. We've been ignoring this for 50 years. We've got all kinds of logging records from 50 and 100 years ago where, a company would go in and say, well, there's 80 to 100 trees per acre. Got a lot of evidence in this area of that. And now there's 10 times that because there's only one logging company left in the entire Central Valley around Fresno area.
Yeah, well, it's again, you gotta have the proper, and if you don't have enough light hitting the actual forest floor, it eliminates all the other flora and fauna that would exist there to have a fully robust ecosystem as well. And if you have limited light getting through, those smaller trees are gonna stay small and thin, and they won't even be good for the logging needs that we'd like them to be for, and they'll grow a lot slower. So it's good to glean the forests like that. Plus, the logging companies, they take out that underbrush and all those extra pine needles. It really mitigates those fires. But I mean, if you really want to also supplement, in the firefighting, you have to also build out a modern and robust firefighting department. I mean, we just had $101 million or yeah, $1 million budget cut from Gavin Newsom to Cal Fire. I want to invest in getting the latest and greatest technology. I mean, we should have the most robust firefighting equipment in the nation, so much so that we can then lease it out to other states when they're in need. I mean, that's what happens with us. We have to call in those DC-10s from Quebec to help us. And you think they give it to us for free? No, it costs the state money to do that. But if we had our own firefighting equipment that was really built out where we could handle our stuff very easily, a fire breaks out in Montana or whatever, we can send our stuff over there and use it as a way to bring a net positive back into the state as well.
Well, we had a problem during these LA fires. Oregon sent a bunch of trucks.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know this story? You tell this story.
Yeah, so 60 fire trucks were set down from Oregon to help us fight the fires here in LA, but they got held up because of the carbon emissions. They had to pass inspections before they could come down here and fight fires. I mean, this is that environmentalist cult stuff. I mean, and like literally this like the hills of LA are burning. Thousands of homes are being,
They're burning carbon.
yeah, they're releasing all this, toxic house material into the air. But hold on, the emissions from the fire trucks, we got to make sure they meet our standards. It's so ridiculous. The arbitrary rules and practices here in California just handcuff us at every step of the way, whether it's for law enforcement or, just business, trucking laws. I mean, all these things combined crush us. I mean, bringing up carb, I mean, the carb stuff. we used to have our own fleet of trucks, but we had to get rid of them because all the CARB regulations put an added cost and a headache on us that we just didn't want to deal with because we'd have had to hire more people to then handle the CARB paperwork. And then the time for the trucks would be off the road, would have had to have us get more trucks. It would just been more costs, more drivers. And then the next thing you know, we're spending more money. So we had to go to a leasing company and put it on them.
We're going to go ahead and take our first break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. I am joined by governor candidate, and it's a little early. I'm glad that you've declared early. Leo Zacky, he wants to change California, and we were just talking about some of the fire issues. One of the other big issues, I'm going to go ahead and pivot, is what do we do about homelessness? We spent $24 billion. The money's unaccountable. We have really no idea what happened. And we magically got more homeless.
Yeah. Isn't that a really funny thing? 50% more homeless, $24 billion wasted. Who knows where it went? Look, we have a big problem in the state in its corruption and money laundering. All these homeless czars and homeless, organizations that are being funded by the state, well, they're all appointed. There's no real oversight. There's no election process. So they're just put in place and here you go, figure it out. And honestly, they're helping their friends and family, make a lot of money. They're just milking the system. They're probably buying socks off of Alibaba and then turning around and selling them back to the state for $10 a pair. And then the wasteful spending too with like these sheds, these tiny homes, they're literally like sheds you would buy at Home Depot and they're like $20,000. It's ridiculous. They're not trying to fix the problem. They're here to really push a homeless industrial complex. So I do have a solution.
So they're perpetuating the problem. So what's your solution? What do we do?
Well, first things first, you have to identify the root cause of the problem. And it's a mental health crisis compounded with drug addiction, exacerbated by a failed education system here in California. So now that we know what the cause is, we have to have a standing to go and remove these folks. So we need to have our vagrancy laws enforceable so we can then remove them from the streets and in front of the businesses and homes of people. And so you really give them, you give them three choices. It's really two, but you give them three. Option one is you can live this way, but you got to go, if you want to camp, you got to go camp, not urban camping. That doesn't work. Option two is you're going to go to jail for vagrancy laws, but jail's not going to hold you. They're going to kick you out into option three, which is the homeless to home program that I've developed. And so homeless to home is we take the folks off the street. We figure out, all right, who are you and what's wrong with you? Like, are you a U.S. citizen? If you are, we're going to help you. If not, you're deported. Option two, then it's like, all right, do you have anybody looking for you? And if you do, we can reunite them with their families and, then they can take them off our hands and off our books. After that, it's, did some other state send you here? Because there's a lot of stories of states buying one-way bus tickets and shipping their homeless here because good old Rainbow Brown was said, bring us your homeless. So now we're inundated with them. So whatever state sent their homeless to us, well, if we're going to provide treatment for them, we're going to make sure that state pays for that treatment. So we're going to figure out, all right, what's wrong with you? Do you have a mental health crisis? Do you have a drug addiction? Both. We're going to provide treatment for them. We're in a facility, not a brick and mortar crazy facility. You have to spend millions of dollars and all this stuff. But I found these small modular homes. They're about 400 square feet. They're modular, so you can stack them and arrange them in different ways. They assemble in about an hour, and they're $2,000 a unit.
Well, but see, that seems reasonable. Why would we do anything reasonable? Common sense has left the state.
Right. So we'll be able to get these, and I've worked out a deal with the company that manufactures them. We can pay them off over, I think it was like a 26-month period, something like that, where we'll pay them $75 a month for the unit until it's paid off. And then after that, we can use that $75 that we've been paying off as income for the state. And I'll tell you how this is going to be an income thing. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But so the folks are going to work. Like they're going to get treatment, but they're going to go and do basic construction. Like I mentioned earlier, You give 100,000 people a shovel, they can dig a hole pretty fast and they can pour concrete. Congratulations, you built a reservoir. They can do sanitation, send them to our tourist traps, Hollywood Boulevard, the Santa Monica Pier, the San Francisco Wharf, all the touristy spots. Clean it up, scrub them down, clean the trash, all that stuff. I mean, I went to Montreal like 12 years ago, and that's exactly what they did. They had folks as soon as the bars closed, 3 a.m. Folks come and they start cleaning the whole streets. I was impressed, and I was really impressed with how clean that city was as well. Then basic agriculture stuff. They can work a field, maybe even work with livestock, and the crops that they raise can then be turned around and sold by the state as a feel good organic product, and people will pay top dollar for that kind of stuff. If it's going to be for, obviously for human consumption. Otherwise, if it's feedstock, I mean, still that'll still make the market no problem. Then you have basic firefighting. Have them go out and do underbrush clearing, back burning, hand crews. All that kind of stuff can really help mitigate the wildfires as well. But also, they're going to be learning a job skill, and they'll earn a living wage doing all these jobs. But you deduct the medical care, you deduct the drug treatment, you deduct the housing at $75 a month, and the food costs. Not to a point where they're going to go into debt, but that money that they'll earn will go into an account they can't touch till they complete the program. And when they do, they've got money in the bank. They're eligible for government assisted housing. They're off drugs. They got their mental health under control. They know how to manage these things. And then anybody who hires them coming out of the program gets a tax incentive for doing so. So that's how I see ending homelessness.
Well, homelessness is very, very connected to petty crime, and petty crime is very connected to larger crime. We've got a crime epidemic in California.
Kill.
I don't think you can have a successful economy without dealing with the crime part.
They got to let our police do what they need to do and go after criminals and not embolden the criminals. Don't give them an allowance of theft. Uh, don't have a revolving door. We need to have stricter punishments and actual consequences for crimes. And DAs like Gascon that we had down here in LA that were just letting criminals loose, that kind of behavior will not be tolerated in my California. If you're not going to uphold your position and do your job to protect the people and uphold the law and your office's duty, you will be removed from that office one way or another.
So do we need more prisons? Because the jails are overflowing. Basically, we've closed several prisons and they've forced people into the county jails. Those county jails are overflowing. And once they reach a certain point, state law makes them kick people out, meaning release them back onto the streets without actually serving time. In other words, we've gotten rid of the consequence element of dealing with crime.
Yeah, but I think sitting in jail, not contributing to society, isn't really beneficial either. You break the law, you need to be doing hard labor. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, they can also supplement and do what the homeless will be doing the back burning, doing the sanitation stuff, building the reservoirs. I mean, jail shouldn't be three hots and a cot and a nice TV and and the best workout routine you've ever had. It needs to be something that's going to make you not want to go back there.
Well, let's hope,
Yeah.
because I believe that has to shift.
But look, we're spending 5% of the state's budget right now on 0.5% of the population of the state. We've got about 200,000 inmates in California, and we spend $10 billion a year on them. The state budget's 220 billion annually. I mean, it's ridiculous.
The prison guards do a hard job and they get paid quite well. But why is jail so expensive?
Well, part of it has to do with the quality of food that they're allowed to eat. In prison, they have to be given grade A food, but in our schools, the local jurisdictions have the option of buying A, B, C, or D grade food.
Wow.
And they say that because if inmate one and has a different looking slice of bologna from inmate two, they could be a prison riot about it. And I know this because we used to have the contract to sell grade A bologna to the prisons. That was their reasoning behind it.
That's kind of crazy. It's like the inmates are now running the asylum.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked what Sheriff Joe Arpaio did with the tent cities and having the guard dogs. It costs more to feed the guard dogs than the inmates.
That's cool.
I thought that was great.
So we've got several other big issues. So I'm going to pivot it.
Sure.
Um, Insurance is gone through the roof. I just got my car insurance and it was $3,000 before. Now I have a very good commercial policy, and now it's 4,300. That's more than a 25% increase. And it's even worse if you're in any of the fire zones, if you can get insurance at all. How could you, as governor, what legislation could happen that would make it a little easier for people to get insurance?
Well, when it comes to things like fire insurance, I mean, if you're properly managing the state's wildlands, mitigating these wildfires as devastating as they've been, I mean, just in the last, what, 6 years, we've just had one astronomically large fire after the next, more devastating after the next. It's because we're not managing our forests. We're not fixing our infrastructure. So if we do the proactive stuff to mitigate the fires, you'll have less of them, which will put less of a cost on the insurance companies, which will then turn around and mean they'll have to charge less. The reason they've been asking for more money is because of the frequency of these events taking place. And the reason they dropped coverage on so many people is because California is one of a handful of states that has an insurance commissioner that capped the rates. So the insurance companies were forced in a position that gave them two options: go broke funding California's mismanagement, or pull the funding from the highest risk people because of the mismanagement in California. So unfortunately, that was the case. So if we do a better job at that, also, if we have, I think when it comes to things like you mentioned, automobile insurance, if we have stricter, uh, policies for what it takes to become a licensed driver in California, I think you'll see better driving as well. I,
Well, illegals get driver's licenses here.
yeah, that well, first off, I'm really looking forward to Tom Homan and Donald Trump having this deportation take place. I think that's going to be a big step in the right direction. But look, if you're not a citizen of this country, you shouldn't be, or someone that's visaed to be here, you shouldn't be eligible for a driver's license.
Agreed. Uh, it's crazier than that, though. We are giving the homeless, meaning the one party rule up in Sacramento, and that's not the Republicans, that's the Democrats. We are giving homeless free health care and inviting them in. Now, often they're hardworking people, and I understand that some of them just want a better life. But if they didn't come the right way, we have no idea who they are. Are they child traffickers? Are they drug dealers? Are they criminals of some other sort? Yikes. People need to come the right way. I want immigrants. I just want them to come legally. So, how do we fix that?
Well, Donald Trump and Tom Homan seem to be doing a pretty good job. I mean, we're very early into Trump's second term. But whatever I have to do to make sure that there's no sanctuary city laws or protections that are going on, inhibiting ICE and any federal government statutes on immigration, well, those will definitely be removed. If I have to use the National Guard to do it, I will, because we need to secure our border, because the fentanyl is all coming from China. 100% of the fentanyl is manufactured in China. It's then sold to the cartels down in Mexico. They smuggle it across the border, and with children and all the horrible stories that you've ever heard about, rape and all these terrible things. I mean, this is a human rights issue that we're dealing with because of our open borders, because of our sanctuary city policies. If you care about women and you care about children and you care about the lives of your fellow Americans and you want to stop this drug epidemic, you need to care about the security of our border. And I do.
So, would you use executive orders? I mean, can you
Have to.
convince?
I mean, look, I will offer a sound logical argument, and I'll make it available for all the people of California to hear and see. And if the legislature is still, being obstinate to it, then we just expose that and make it very clear to the people that these are the representatives that are inhibiting your ability to have a safe community, to have a healthy community, and have a fair place to just operate and do business, because we know that there are tons of illegals that are taking jobs in cash for less. But that's
Mhm.
because there's all these burdens on businesses. They have to cheat the system. And unfortunately, when you enable them with illegal immigrants, they're going to take that opportunity and take jobs away from Americans as well. So yeah, executive orders, putting the National Guard down there, whatever I can to help the Trump administration rid us of these folks. These are criminals. They're here illegally. You're a criminal. It's that simple. They have no respect for the country that they're inhabiting because they broke the law the moment they stepped across the border the wrong way.
And they're on California's welfare system in multiple ways.
Absolutely. We're paying for them to go to school. We're paying them for their health care. We're paying for their housing. And that's coming from your pocket and my pocket and everybody out there listening's pocket. And they don't pay into the system.
Well,
We've got broken
some of
firecrackers.
them do a little bit because they get a fake ID and they get a social security number, and that money, some of it does go if they've got a legitimate employer.
Yeah,
But
but
I'm not at all saying it's okay that they're here.
is cheating on your wife a little bit, still okay? Still cheating.
It's still cheating.
So I find it as not okay.
Trump put some conditions on the fire help. What do you think of those conditions?
They're great. Voter ID? Are you kidding me? That's something that's long overdue for the state of California. We definitely need that. And obviously, doing away with the sanctuary city stuff is going to be great, and letting the water flow in California. I really want to see that take place. Now, I'm hearing that there's a big argument to saying that, well, he says that the military went in and let the water flow. And well, the Democrats are saying that's not true and that there's plenty of water. I don't trust the Democrats. I'm going to trust Donald Trump on what he said in this regard, but we'll see how it all plays out. But voter ID, having free and fair elections in the state of California, how about balancing and making sure our voter rolls are accurate? Because we've had a very hyperinflated voter roll here in California for a long time. Now we've done a little bit of a job cleaning it up, but it's still not good enough. I mean, when you hear about 135% registered voters in the county of Los Angeles, or 148% in San Francisco. I mean, those numbers are flawed
Right.
just to begin with. Like, you can't have more than 100%. And even if you were at 100%, that would be concerning because that's still a very unrealistic number to reach.
Well, even states that have voter ID aren't at 100.
Right. So I'd like to see a purging of the voter rolls. First archive them, purge them, and then make everybody register to vote and get like a physical voter ID card, not like your driver's license, but like a proper, hey, this is my card to go and vote, and use that. And that should have a one-time scan for the primary and a one-time scan for the general. And then it's no good to use after that with your photo on it, of course.
Oh, absolutely. Because there are a lot of states that have ID, but it might be any card that you can get. So it really doesn't mean much. It actually has to have some teeth in it. I'm very pleased that a city down your way, Huntington Beach, has taken real steps on voter ID. Because they're a charter city, they have the opportunity to do something different. They have a different relationship with the government. And while they're being sued by Rob Bonta, our attorney general here in California, I see that as one of the beacons of hope, that we have to change local to fix this bigger problem.
Absolutely. That's why I mentioned earlier that there's a lot of great grassroots candidates that need help. If we're going to take this state back, it's going to happen at all levels. I mean, I think I'm best fitted for the job of governor because of my executive background in agriculture and having been around all these different types of politicians and bureaucrats, that we need to actually have someone like me in that position. But we need to have folks at all levels that are passionate and really care about doing the right thing in the common sense thing. The one thing that's been completely absent here in California for 30 years.
Yeah, at least 30 years. Because I didn't think Schwarzenegger had much of any of it. You got to go back to Duke Majan had some. I'm a little older than you.
Yeah. It's okay. I mean, look, growing up here, my family's been here for 120 years. I'm a fourth generation Californian. So, I mean, I know what California can be. I know all the stories of how it used to be. I mean, it's what it was allowed my family to be as successful as we were. We vertically integrated in the state, and our company went from a small poultry market in 1928 to a huge vertically integrated company by the late 60s, and we were a $500 million company. But California changed the legislature changed. They focused on environmental stuff and weren't so kind to businesses, and it eventually choked the life out of us. And we've seen that happen with so many countless businesses here in California. So if you want to see some common sense and fair business practices, low taxes, things work right, I'd ask for your support and voting for me.
All right, we're going to take our last break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. I am joined by Leo Zacky. He's running for governor of California. So, Leo, before I forget, I want you to give contact information, and then we're going to do that one more time right at the very end.
Sure.
But go ahead and how do people find out more about you beyond this show?
Well, the best place to go is my website, leozacky.com, leozacky.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at Leo S. Zacky, or on X at Leo Zacky, or all those other social medias, one of them. You can also listen to my show, America Matters, on America Matters Media's Facebook page. Just go to americamatters.us, click the link, and you can listen to me 7 hours a week there.
Well, I'm certain there's quite a lot there.
Oh, yeah.
You're not a hidden typical politician that changes what they have to say.
I mean, just
depending on who's in front of you.
I mean, look, as long as the FCC is okay with it, I'll say it. But yeah, no, look, I'm a regular guy. I grew up in an agriculture family, in a business, got involved in it. I play hockey. I like to snowboard, and I'm just a regular person. I'm just tired of being lied to and not getting the results that I, as a Californian, deserve. And I hate seeing my friends and teammates move away because they don't want to raise their kids in California, or they can't afford to own a home, or it doesn't make economic sense for them to just live here. There is hope, but it's going to come from action and people that are motivated. And there are so many different groups out there, like yours, Eric. I mean, being part of the Constitutionalist for California is a great organization that brings a lot of information to folks that helps get them activated and want to do something. There's great church groups out there. The California Republican Assembly,
Love them.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about grassroots door knockers, like that's the kind of stuff that candidates need help with. If you don't want to be a candidate, and look, we need candidates at all levels, whether it's school board or county commissioner or a state rep or whatever. We need good people that care and are willing to put in the time and the effort. And that means sacrificing Saturdays and Sundays and, who knows? But candidates need this support.
We are blessed to live in some of the best weather, have some of the most amazing sets of resources here in California. We're the 5th largest economy, and yet we probably should be above that. I think we're behind Germany. We should be doing better than that. We've had one-party rule that I believe has held us back. I believe there's tremendous potential here.
Yeah.
But there's a price to freedom. Folks, you got to get to work. Even if it's just the minimum is, do you talk to your friends about politics and religion? That's the minimum, because that shifts culture.
Mm-hmm.
And people are afraid to even do that. They just want to, just sit and do nothing. But they want to enjoy all the freedoms. Well, freedom's not free.
That's right. I talk about that stuff frequently, loudly and proudly in public, and I'm not ashamed about it. And speaking of resources, I mean, think about all the oil that we have here in California. I mean, there's literally a town just outside of Bakersfield called Oildale, and it's called Oildale for a reason, because there's a lot of oil there. And I'd love to open the taps here in California and be self-sufficient when it comes to oil production and consumption. I mean, why do we need to bring it in from out of the state? We've got the infrastructure in place to do it. And if we were to do that, it would bring 100,000 jobs to that area and really revitalize the south end of the valley. No question about it. And it would bring like $80 billion annually in revenue to the state if we were to do that.
Well, good jobs. As it is, we're bringing in oil from across the world. We don't count the carbon emissions because that's what they have to bow before. And they don't count them until those tankers are within 12 miles of the California coast. all the rest of the carbon emissions that it took to get that oil there. We make it cleaner, and we wouldn't have all the transportation cost just to do it here in California. Where oil's not going away, folks.
No, this is a petroleum planet. I mean, everything is made out of oil. Your clothes, your phone, your computer, you name it. It's all oil. And if we can do it here, it's going to be a heck of a lot cheaper. It's going to create a lot of money for the state. It's going to create a lot of jobs for people. I mean, the growth will be tremendous, and we've got plenty of it. And I hate bending the knee and talking about carbon and all the time. We actually need to have carbon in our atmosphere. Right now, it's like 0.04% of our atmosphere is carbon. And if it drops to 0.02, all the plant life will begin to die. And if the plants die, then we die because they make the oxygen. Most of the greenhouse gases that you hear them complaining about all the time, well, they come from volcanism. It's like over 90% of that comes from volcanism. There's nothing you can do about that.
So that basically that means volcanoes and other events that have to do with the Earth's core, not man-made. Well, we're down to about 3.5 minutes. What do you hope for if you were elected? What are your day one? What do you, just like Trump had a day one plan? What would be your day one plan?
Fire everybody who I can fire and make them reapply for the job. I mean, really, that's the one thing. Like, I want to know why you want this job and why you deserve that job. I want to hire people I can trust, not necessarily. They don't need to be the best. I mean, obviously, I want the best possible people, but I want to work with people that I can trust, because if I can trust them to get the job done, then they will, and it's just going to benefit everybody that much quicker. I mean, trust is something that is so paramount in today's world, and I just don't trust the politicians that we have, and I don't think the listeners out there do either. So that's why I put trust first. Implementing the fact that we're going to have a robust water infrastructure, we're going to have a stable and reliable power supply, will make things affordable. Ensuring that our kids are getting a proper education and not an indoctrination is all things that can be very easily done with the power of the governor's office. And any legislature that's going to be put in front of me, it better be a single item ticket. No, hiding a bunch of pork into there, because I've got that line veto power, and you better believe I'm going to use it.
I don't know that Gavin needs to use it because he's in agreement with everything that comes through.
Yeah.
Rarely has he even vetoed anything.
No, and some of the stuff he's passed is really disgusting. Like the allowing like the 10-year age gap for what would determine a child sex predator. That was like one of the first things he passed.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff has got to go. I care about the kids. If you're a pedophile, you're going to jail for life. You can't be abusing children like that.
Amen.
So, but we've got a lot of things to do in California. There's a lot of foundational issues I want to solve. I've got a lot of solutions for them, and I always want to hear from folks. I want to hear people's input. That's why I like to make myself available. You can always direct message me, like I said before, on social media, on X or on Instagram at Leo S. Zacky. I want to hear from you. If you agree, great. If you disagree, that's fine. Tell me what you think would be better. And if it is, let's implement it. Let's use it, because I'm going to represent everybody in California, not just the Republicans. I'm here to be the leader for everybody. So I'm not here to change the way you live. I'm just here to make it functional and affordable.
What makes you uniquely qualified? I know we went over some of that, but
Sure.
just a little soundbite of why is this the guy? Why should we be considering you for governor?
Well, agriculture is the number one source of revenue for the state of California. That's my background. I was the vice president of the company. I had to cut my teeth to work up to that point. So I know what it takes to do a hard day's work, and I know all the stuff that is required to make a business operate at a management level, an upper management level, successful. And that's exactly what a governor's role is upper management. It's the highest point. So with that background, common sense, mindset, and just keeping things simple. I mean, as a farmer, that's what you got to do. Find the simple solutions, because life, it isn't necessarily that complicated. So finding simple solutions that are affordable, that benefit everybody, that's my forte. I mean, finding the root cause of the problem and working backwards to solve it is what I like to do best.
Well, Leo Zacky for governor, is that how we find out more about you on your website?
LeoZacky.com.
And then the other thing is, if they want to listen to you on your own podcast,
Yeah.
here's a way to find out your views.
Yeah. Go to americamatters.us. We do the show live Monday through Friday at noon, except on Wednesdays and Thursdays. It's 2 hours from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific. You can find it on the Facebook page, America Matters Media, or on LinkedIn or Rumble or Twitch, so on and so forth. So we'd love to have you listen and get involved with the show there as well.
Well, Leo, I sure thank you for this time, and I wish you the best. We need good people in government, so I hope you have a real shot at this. I know that you're going to work, and I know that you have the ability to convince people. So I thank you again.
I appreciate that. And I hope I've convinced you.
Well, good luck to you, Leo.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.